Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning and top of the year, Dan and Amy, hold that music when you're moving out. No.
Uh-oh, what?
When you're moving back, like everybody else that's moving to Illinois because it is a magnet for civilization and economic prosperity. That was part of the message that Governor Jellybelly delivered in his annual end-of-the-year retrospective, the year 2023 that was in Illinois. Here's the governor.
Hello, Illinois. This is Governor J.B.
Hi.
Pritzker. Here we are at the end of another year. Despite all the challenges facing the nation and the world these days, thanks to your help, we've gotten big things done right here in the best state in America. We defeated the gun lobby and banned assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. While right-wingers in other states are banning books, we stopped them cold here in Illinois by banning book bans. Overcoming Republican opposition, we raised the minimum wage, expanded mental health care, made child care more affordable and available, and lowered the cost of getting a higher education degree. And while MAGA Republican extremists try to take away abortion rights, I founded Think Big America to fight back and make sure that they can't end a woman's right to make decisions about her own health care. Together, we've gotten big things done for Illinois families, but there's still so much more we must do. As we look ahead to 2024, we know we have to work to prepare for the challenges ahead. I'm ready for the fight. Thank you for your support, your tenacity, and your kindness, Illinois. Here's to another year of fighting for working families and protecting our freedoms.
Wow, so moving.
Thank you, Governor Pritzker. For more on that and response, we'll give some rebuttal time to Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Ted, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us.
Happy New Year, Dan. Happy New Year, Amy. Glad to be back. 2024.
Take whatever you'd like from the end of the year accomplishments.
Well, I always say he's always so good at spinning his stuff, and this year is going to be a big spin year with the elections coming and with the DNC in August. So you're going to hear lots of spin about how good Illinois is. But I think he forgot to mention that the year closed out right there at the end of the year. The U.S. Census put out data that we lost population again for the third year in a row after shrinking in the last decade. So whatever he says about all the good things he's doing, people are fleeing the state almost like no other state in the country. So, we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to that loss of people. And it's not working, whatever he thinks he's doing.
Something else he said that, it gets glossed over. It's just one of the things politicians say and they usually get away with. We've lowered health care costs. Every politician is a fiscal conservative, and every politician has lowered health care costs. It's funny how we continue to accumulate more debt and unfunded liabilities, and costs for things like health care continue to go up, even though every politician has lowered them. But in particular, what's the latest tally on the provision of health care services for the tens of thousands of migrants who've made their way to Illinois with a little help from the Texas governor?
Well, yeah, that's been another big number that nobody really has talked about since originally we thought we were going to have to spend $1 billion on Medicaid for these new immigrants. Then they tried to cut that number to $500 million in the budget so that way they would be responsible. Next thing you know, we're over that by $300 million, and now I haven't heard anything since then. So God knows whether we're spending $1 billion more it will be a big number, and it's not contemplated in the budget, and it certainly is going to come at the expense of the ordinary residents that Pritzker was meant to take care of. It's the same thing for Johnson.
Well, right. The 300, 500, 800 million, billion, that's taxpayer-funded healthcare services for people in this country, largely people in this country illegally, some pending asylum applications, but regardless, that shouldn't be here, arguably, if we had sensible policy at the border. So that between, let's say, $500 million and $1 billion is just going to be built into what Illinoisans pay.
Yeah, and then you start adding in things like the $95 million that Mayor Johnson just said he's going to spend from COVID money, and we don't really know what that number is going to be. Then you start adding up all the cost of the day-to-day of just taking care of all these people, and it's going to balloon. And that's, of course, on top of the typical problems we have with pensions and other things that no longer get discussed but continue to accrue.
Well, Ted, what do you make of all these suburban mayors and village trustees who are now implementing new laws to try and keep migrants out, even though they have the hate has no home signs here? We welcome everybody in their front yards. Shouldn't they take some of this pain away from Chicago?
Well, maybe they should if they continue to have their signs out and continue to be, espousing those policies that they want to take care of everybody. But I think the reality is hitting home is that it's expensive to host these people. It's hard to take care of them. We haven't given them. We could argue about that. We haven't given them the ability to work. So you've got even out here in Wilmette, you've got people at the Jewel, at the Whole Foods. They're begging, looking for work. So it's a real mess, and nobody wants to handle it anymore. So it was easy to be woke about all this until the reality hit you in the face, and these suburbs are smartly realizing they can't handle it and are pushing back on Chicago.
Right, and BLM Brandon was on making the rounds on CNN and Face the Nation, big star turn on Face the Nation this weekend. And on CNN, he had a couple of ideas about what should be done, pathway to citizenship. Also, and I don't really know how this plays in, but he offered this up.
In order for us to have a better, stronger, and safer Chicago, it really requires the full force of government. We have stood up an entire office dedicated to reentry. So individuals who are returning to our communities who have been incarcerated because of failed policies, we'll have a welcoming space for them. I've added $500,000 for restoration and reparations to address, again, the cycle of violence, which looks like school closings, closing of mental health facilities, of which I've invested in now. And so in order for us to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago, it requires investments. And that's what this budget has done.
So are we going to set up shelters for ex-cons too now?
What is that?
We got our homeless shelters, we got our ex-con shelters, we got our migrant shelters.
Yeah, that's progress for him. That's how you build a Chicago. And I tell you that the deeper we get into this, the worse he comes out. Oftentimes, it turns into word salad sometimes. But he's stretching, he's reaching, he's way over his head, I think, on all this, and it's showing up across the board. And I don't think he's got very little support. Obviously, he's got support from the extreme left. The more and more that he says these extreme things. We highlighted how he blamed Governor Abbott for the whole crisis in the country. When it's Abbott who's having to support 1 million people coming over that border. Johnson just looks bad, and I tell you what's going to be interesting, Dan and Amy, is this crisis worsens, as I assume it will, and crime, don't know where crime goes. Pritzker's got his DNC in Chicago in a few months. Pritzker's not going to put up with this because Pritzker's got to protect his message. He just gave his beautiful message end of the year. He's got to protect it, and so the way that Pritzker came down on Johnson with the Brighton Park tent city and blocked it. Look for Pritzker to do more. I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to start seeing more spats between the two, because Johnson's got a totally different agenda than Pritzker. Even though they're on the same side, Pritzker doesn't want it to look the way Johnson does.
Yeah, but that's easy to address. I mean, you just do what Governor Jelly Belly always does. You say, and the Census Bureau says the population is declining, and he says the population's increasing. You say that violence in Chicago is increasing, and they say, well, here's the comm shop for the mayor and for the political ruling class in Illinois. ABC7 Chicago, part of their comp shop. I'm quoting their tweet. Violence in Chicago saw a dramatic decrease this year.
Oh, it did.
Some organizations are working hard to make sure that trend continues in 2024. Everything is on the upswing.
Yeah, that's such a lie, by the way. No, so Dan, I agree with you on the messaging. The problem's going to be hiding it, right? And so take the case of 10 cities.
Hiding it.
They're too visual.
Don't believe your lying eyes. It's like if you know somebody who's been victimized by a criminal in Chicago. I mean, that's big city living. It doesn't mean anything about Chicago. It doesn't mean anything about the people in charge. The data, that doesn't mean anything. Listen to what Jelly Belly says. Listen to what BLM Brandon says. Don't listen to people talking about data. They're engaged in fear porn. They're demonizing this great city. Why are they rooting against Chicago, Tad? Why are you rooting against Illinois? That's all you have to say. But by the way, you say that ABC7, what they tweeted out is a lie. What do you mean it's a lie?
Yeah, and they'll do that. Don't get me wrong, Dan. I get that. My only point is the eye candy, right? So, things on the street, because people are coming January 9th to do the first walkthrough for the DNC at the United Center. So there's going to be people on the ground. And so, how do you hide the carjackings and all that stuff that goes on? There's going to be a big battle of how to clean this place up before we get there. So I'm just saying, look for a little more tension because Johnson's.
Well, you don't think they're going to erect the tent at 115th and Halstead?
I don't know. I guarantee Pritzker will do everything he can not to have them.
But that's far enough away.
Wait a second. You said violence in Chicago saw a dramatic decrease this year. You said that's a lie. Well, don't just say it's not. Tell us how it's a lie.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at it, we had a 40% increase in major crimes from 2021 to 2022. This past year, we had another 17% increase. So we had another 12,000 major crimes over last year. And so it's another increase. It's the high by far since 2019. Now the question is going to be what happens from here. But yes, murders were down 13%, and you're going to hear a lot about them pitching murders were down. But what you need to do is take that in context. Philly murders down 26%. Sorry, Philly murders down, what are my numbers? They're down like 20%. Murders across the country for big cities were down 15 to 20%.
Good governance.
13. So.
Yeah, good governance.
Yeah.
Murders are down. Just focus on murders and shootings. They're off a little bit. Not to mention the context that's lacking here. Of course, you're talking about 30-year highs in 2019,
Correct.
And so they've come down a little bit, but they're still well above the median over the last 30 years. But of course, that's the sort of egg-headed, data-driven conversations that nobody wants to have. But just listen to what ABC7 says, and BLM Brandon says, and Jelly Belly says, and all the other scientific socialists that come to town for the DNC, and don't believe your lying eyes or your bleeding appendages, right?
Yeah. Well, so I found the numbers. New Orleans down 25%, Detroit down 18%, Baltimore down 22%, Houston down 22%, Philly down 21%. So when they come,
good Democrat governance.
Job in Chicago, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's what it's going to be. Look at it; it's working. What all these mayors are doing in all these Democrat cities where violence is the most pronounced, it's working. See, we're on the right path. Now we just need to invest in these violence interrupters and reparations and restorations and welcoming spaces and shelters and all that, and we'll
all be good.
Yeah, we'll all be good. Yeah, it's a very hopeful note.
You made a comment earlier about the extremism that's going on, and we're certainly hitting the extremism in Chicago. Just this is a comment you're saying that Brandon Johnson has made. They're all extreme. Now the question is, there's been no real opposition to oppose them. This has been going on for a couple of decades where there's no real opposition, which allows the left to go more and more extreme. So that is finally providing the opportunity to do a counter. The problem is there's no real opposition to counter it. And so, does 2024 change that? Doesn't look like it.
Well, let me tell you what's going on, though, to change that, to change the make everything safer, make everything better.
What?
One of the
Better,
laws
stronger,
that
safer.
Better, stronger, safer. Thank you. I
Better, stronger,
was
safer.
using the improper axiom there. This is a law that not enough people are talking about. And frankly, Ted, I'm a little ashamed of you at Wirepoints for not addressing this. The potential transformative impact. In Illinois, as we all know, it's long been illegal to hang an object off your rearview mirror that obstructs the driver's view. But thanks to the leadership of this state, including Governor Jellybelly, no vehicle can be stopped and searched solely because any objects placed or suspended between the driver and the front windshield that may obstruct the driver's view. That includes things like air fresheners and even
What?
fuzzy dice.
Oh, bring
Fuzzy
back the
dice
fuzzy dice.
are legal
I'm gonna
again,
Get me a set today.
and all is right with the world.
I
Ted?
think that's the transformative. That's what we need is that law. It should be the one that swings Illinois back in Chicago back into the positive.
Exactly right. So again, for those living under the oppression of a world in which fuzzy dice were prohibited, you are free in Illinois as of yesterday in this beautiful candide that has been created by your duly elected officials. So congratulations to you and all of you. And with that, we kick off the new year. Ted Dabrowski, President, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thank you, Ted, as always.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.